Hello crafty cuties and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Jessica. If you guys can do one thing for me real quick, make sure that you are still subscribed to my channel and make sure that you press that little bell if you do want notifications when I upload. Today I'm going to show you how I made this watercolor wreath with faux brush lettering in my bullet journal. This was the first time I did watercoloring in my journal and I was super excited and very pleased with the results. I'm using a Leuchtturm 1917 dotted journal. I am using my Primo watercolors. This is the Watercolor Confections set. I did a full review on that if you're interested. And I'm using my silver black velvet brush. I think it's a number 6. Obviously, it's a little detail brush, and I really like it. It's definitely a little bit more expensive for a brush, but I definitely think it's worth it. It performs well. I'm using a white gel pen and my Wink of Stella. So I'm going to start out by just tracing a circle. I did want to start out with a pretty good circle. So now I'm going to start with a dark brown color. And obviously you guys can see what I'm doing here, but I'm making some squiggly lines and I'll just kind of explain as we go. Now I did have to speed this up because it did take me probably 40 minutes to create this. So I didn't want to bore you guys, and I'm trying to make sure that my videos work out good for you guys and they're not too long because no one really likes long videos. I know sometimes a few of you will be like, oh, I like them, but I just know we all have things to do. We don't have 40 minutes to watch me watercolor. So I'm basically wanting to go for a pretty bright colored wreath. So I start out with my orange, and then I realized that I wanted to make some little like branches kind of going off of the wreath here. And you guys, I'm just like doing this, not making it perfect. I am not worrying about making things super even. I'm just kind of like going with the flow. I feel like making a pretty wreath might seem intimidating, or maybe it did to me at least, but once I did this one, I feel like you can't really mess this up. As long as you have the circle shape to start out and just go with a bunch of squiggly lines, little circles and dots and things like that, it's going to work out okay. I'm realizing those two orange lines that I made would look better if they were brown, so I went over those. Now I'm showing you here that I made a little spot that had too much water, and you can basically take your brush and make sure it's dry and just put your brush over the wet spot and it's going to suck up that extra water. The one thing I did learn from watercoloring in my bullet journal was that too much water is going to crinkle your pages, which I was afraid of, but anyways. So I'm mixing some colors here. I wanted like a dark green with a bluish tint for some of the leaves that I was doing. So I was just showing you, I was just kind of playing around. I'll add a little bit more green, a little bit more blue, just until I'm happy. I'm not the best at mixing colors, but practice. So, yeah, and a lot of the shapes that I'm making are, as you can see, like little leaf type shapes or petals. I experiment with how I make the different shapes. Sometimes off the corner over here, that's just a scrap piece of paper that I did have under this page just in case things got too wet. And so I will every now and again kind of experiment and see if I like that shape or not. It's really easy to get a flower shape here. So you can see, like I said, this brush is so nice. It's just like the perfect, I don't know, it makes it almost seem like you are drawing with a marker, or I guess even like a pen, because it's not too flexible. So I like this shape of flowers that I'm doing here. It's really easy, you can't mess up. And I feel like once you add a few different colors in there for dimension, it starts to look like a real flower. I add like a little dot of red in the middle. Now this, I don't even know what these are supposed to be, like little blue feathers. I mean, I really didn't know. I just knew that I wanted to add some blue in there, and I wanted something bigger to be on that little centerpiece. I wanted, like a centerpiece on my wreath. So then I realized, you know what, I need like another flower down here. So I'm just making like this star shape, and I add some more petals if I think it needs more. And then I do my little red dot in the middle. And because I'm using watercolors, that little red dot kind of spreads out into the petals, and I really like the look. So another thing that I do quite a bit on this wreath is add teeny little dots, and I'm just using the tip of my brush here. And I feel like with this one brush, you can get so many different shapes and you can do so many different techniques with the brush. So I am gonna have supplies listed down below for you guys, so you can check that out if you want. So then I decide to go around and add a little bit darker red in the middles of wherever I had pink. I wanted some bright yellow, so again, I'm just adding like little dots. And the cool thing about this is if you don't think you're good at drawing, something about using watercolors, I just feel like you can't mess up, and especially with these simple shapes. Notice here I use way too much water on those blue dots. So what I'm going to do is I go back into the dark blue for the center. I should have soaked up that water first, but then I didn't do that. So I dried off my brush and then I go back over and I just touch over each of those spots that had too much water pooled up, and it just sucks it right up. And then I'm going to go ahead and add that darker blue again. And I keep doing that where I add way too much water because watercoloring, you just have to experiment, and when I'm trying to go kind of fast, like I'm not really paying attention to how much water I had. So here I am experimenting with what shape I would get if I just pressed down my brush, you know, kind of flush with the paper. I didn't really like it, so I was like, okay, I wanted a little something more, so I just do these random lines all the way around my little centerpiece there. So now I decided that I wanted to add a color background. I kind of regret this, but it was good to experiment because now I know that it did wrinkle my page a little. However, I don't think it would have if I didn't add water before. But if I didn't add that water splash before I started adding the color, then the color would have been a lot more opaque. Like do you see how this yellow is a lot darker? Well, everything would have been that dark, and I didn't want that. I really just wanted a very muted splash of color. So I do like it in the end, but it wrinkled my pages a little, and I don't think I can really write on the back of this page. So, you know, this is how we learn. I think in the future, I don't think I'm going to try to do like whole pages of color. And if I do, maybe I will just know that I'm going to have to do darker colors. Okay, so here we go with my faux brush lettering. I got a lot of tips from watching YouTube videos. I've been watching YouTube videos on brush lettering for a really long time, but to be honest, I used to think that everyone who was into brush lettering was literally using paintbrushes, and so I remember I was practicing like that for a while, and I was just like, what the heck, this is so hard and impossible. But then I kind of realized that people were like faking their brush lettering, and my friend Jessica, Iska Star, actually has a video where she shows how she does her faux brush lettering, and I got a lot of tips from her, so I'm going to link her video for you guys if you want to check it out. But as you can see, I had drawn this out with pencil first because like I erased, and then I made it as perfect as I could, and then I go over it with my pen and I'm going to erase those marks. I wanted to finish off the top of my eye with like a little watercolor pink flower, and I really like how that topped it off. And then I used my Wink of Stella to add some shimmer. When you use Wink of Stella over the top of water soluble colors, it is going to leak that color onto your Wink of Stella, so make sure to wipe it off before you go on to the next color. So I realized that the edges of my background color were a little too harsh for my liking, so I just go over it with a plain water diluted brush and kind of went over the edges, and it did soften it up a bit, but not a ton because I would have had to use more water. Then I take my white gel pen and just make some random little dots on the places that I wanted to highlight, including my letters. And there we are. We are all done with this watercolor layout. I love it. I had a lot of fun making it. I also really hope that it wasn't too fast for you guys. Like I said, I need to find the perfect mix of being able to speed things up to show you a complete project, along with making sure that it's slow enough for you to be able to see the different steps that I am taking. So I love your feedback, and thank you so much when you do give me the feedback that, hey, that's too fast or that's too slow. I take it into consideration, and that's why I am mentioning it. So thank you guys, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye-bye.